Hi, beautiful people. I'm Shanika.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Corey.
I'm Kelsey, and we are Mother.
We are Black mothers
and artists in a big city.
Navigating motherhood for the first time.
Through a pandemic.
Sharing our personal experiences, the sweet moments with the kiss, mwah,
and all the shit they don't tell you.
Motherhood.
Raw.
Undressed.
And unapologetic.
This journey can be a mother.
Shut your mouth.
This is Mother.
Ladies, episode 1 of Mother. Here we are.
Yeah.
So excited / nervous. I don't know why though, because y'all are my girls. We've been doing this already. So now we're just like making it legit, you know?
Yo, you know what? It's probably because we're like letting people into our little secret circle. That's probably why they're like coming into our little secret circle that we've been having.
Yes, we've been having our little pandemic private Zoom moments, and now like everybody else is going to hear what we're talking about, which is wild. But I'm so excited. So today, for our first episode, I felt like it was a good idea for us to delve into specifically the Black mom experience, because we're all Black women. And I think that our journey to motherhood is extremely unique for a multitude of reasons. And we all have different stories with our births. We all have different, timelines for which we chose to be mothers. There's so many different things that we all have that I think are very unique to us as women, but then also to us as Black women. So I felt like that was a good place for us to start today. So we're going to talk about the Black mom experience. So the thing I kind of wanted to start with, or the question I wanted to ask for everybody and sort of see where we go with that, is talking about, when I say Black mother, what are some of the first thoughts that come to mind for you?
For me, legacy. Legacy comes to mind for me first. The fact that we come from such an incredible ancestry pool. I'm talking even beyond just like our actual mothers and grandmothers, but just like the legacy of just a strong Black women legacy pool. That's what comes to mind for me.
The word resilience comes to mind for me. Just like, so I feel like as Black mothers in general, but I feel like you have to be really resilient and like creative, right? Like there's no, that's just the word that's speaking to me. It just feels like, yeah, you just have to kind of be able to rebound and just be able to continue to create and be, full of life. And so I don't know, resilience is just like, you're always up against something, and how do you, battle through that?
Yeah.
I would say for me, strength is the word that comes to mind. Just, I feel like there's such a weight to Black mother, and like in great ways, and then in like terrible ways as well. And so I think like strength in both like forms comes to mind for me.
I think for me, I was thinking, just sort of piggybacking on all of your different words, I was thinking of roots. Like I instantly just saw like this huge like oak tree with these huge roots into the ground. Because I just, I see Black women as the beginning of everything, that everything kind of spawned from us. And so thinking about that actually has given me a lot of strength throughout kind of navigating motherhood in these past 4 months, of just knowing how connected we all are to the earth, and our very existence, like our ancestors' blood, sweat, and tears went into building this country. So there's something about that feels really powerful. And also it was something I was thinking about a lot going into labor, because I had a lot of fear around going into labor. And I remember a couple of friends telling me that, like, you have the strength of your ancestors, of your mother and your grandmother and your great grandmother and all those people who've done this before you. And you have everything you need to bring this child into the world. And that gave me so much peace in those months leading up to when I was getting really nervous about actually having to go into labor. Which kind of leads me to the next thing. that I wanted to sort of open for a discussion for us. And, we can kind of just chat it up like we always do, about whether you had any specific fears about being a mom because you are a Black woman. And sort of talking about what those things are and kind of what came up for you when you found out you were pregnant. If there were anything specific that you feel you wanted to share on that front.
Well, of course, I mean, being a mother who was going to have a son, a Black son, the reality of that was the fear that I had. I think when I first found out I was pregnant, I was so excited. I don't really think I had a lot of fear. And then Chloe, my beautiful friend, introduced me to the Positive Birth Company. So I started doing the hypnobirthing courses, and that was very helpful because my mother and grandmother had very traumatizing childbirth experiences. And those were the stories that I had heard before that, before becoming a mom. And I knew that I wanted to kind of create my own narrative, my own emotions about childbirth leading up to it. And I really wanted to think very positively because I'm all about, positive energy. And then in my spirit, I knew I was going to have a son actually before I found out he was going to be a boy. And then it's so interesting because when I was having that thought, the uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement during the pandemic was happening. And so that made me that much more emotional about it because, it's different when it was happening and you didn't think about you bringing a life into this world and carrying a being. And then it was something different when it was like, oh, now I have to care for this being. And I have to try, at some point, I'm going to have to release him. And at some point, I'm going to have to give him freedoms. And at some point, I'm going to have to teach him all these things that his other, white counterpart, his other friends of other races are not even going to have to know, Right. And that was going through my mind while also trying to maintain positive thinking because, you really are thinking about that mind-body connection to your seed. And I also was like, how am I going to do that without worrying as well? Because I don't want him to live this life with fear. I want him to be knowledgeable, but not fearful, So I would say that out of everything, my pregnancy was pretty joyous, but that fear about raising a Black son in a world that doesn't understand him, doesn't care to understand him, and doesn't value his existence was tough. That was the fear that I had, and I know I have a strong husband and who is going to help me in making sure that he is strong and that he's able to go out in this world without the fear, but with the knowledge. But as a mother, from day one, you never stop worrying, right? Like it's already just like, I feel like it comes with just becoming a mom. You naturally have that concern, that worry. So I would say that was my fear, is just like in raising a Black son, that part of it. Because even though I have hope for a better future, I don't think all these beautiful children are a part of this second baby boom for nothing. I do have hope that there's going to be a better tomorrow, but while we're in the thick of it still, that is, that was a fear for me personally.
Yes, I can totally identify with that too. I had that same fear, and we didn't find out the sex of our son until he was born. So I went throughout my entire pregnancy not knowing, but everybody, literally everybody said it was a boy. And so I kept,
I was like, it is definitely a
boy. Yes, everybody said it was a boy. At my baby shower, we had like little team girl, team boy bracelets. No one took team girl. Like everybody was like, the pet nods are having a boy. And I had a lot of fear around it. And I think it took me a second to like really be okay saying that out loud, because for a while I felt a little shame around that, of like, I'm scared to have a boy because I know what that's going to be like. I know the conversations I'm going to have. I know that that's going to have to be a very different journey for me. And it was very scary. And I have some video footage of Wayne and I when we found out that we were pregnant, and we had gone to a couple of Breonna Taylor marches. And we were out and about, and obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it was scary, but it just was something that I felt like we had to do, especially with me being pregnant, because I had even more of a vested interest in seeing justice for Breonna Taylor, which she still hasn't gotten, and George Floyd. It felt like it was even more active or activated now that I had a child inside of me that I knew that was going to be Black, whether it was a boy or a girl, that, it just sort of activated that extra fire that even though we were in a pandemic, I was like, we have to go. We have to be there. We'll be as safe as we can, but we have to participate in this, and it was very, very enlightening and crazy to think about now that he's here. But like in the midst of it, it's just, you sort of have this trigger that kicks over. And I think it's just a subconscious thing that as Black women, we've constantly had to do, where we have to adapt. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm pregnant and we're in a pandemic and I'm going to have a Black child, and I've got to figure out what to do in order to make him or her the safest possible,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Sorry, Jackson was freaking out. He doesn't care that we're doing that.
Jackson is not concerned with mother.
Nope, not at all. He's like, yep, and he's looking at me too. He's doing that look, hi, buddy. What can you just tell me? We're just like, so how did the question was, how did you feel when you got pregnant? Or like, what were your fears or anxieties about being pregnant?
Yeah, like, did being a Black woman kind of amplify any fear that you had around having children, or if there were any fears that you felt during your pregnancy that kind of circulated around you being a Black woman as well,
Yeah, I definitely think just, the when I was pregnant, and again, like, with the pandemic, having to go to all these appointments by myself, like all of us that, my husband was never allowed to come to anything. He never saw one ultrasound. He never saw one, nothing. So making sure that, and then also the resources and what was available to me as a Black woman, as far as pregnancy care, like doctors I could go to that I wouldn't have to pay out of pocket for, people that were in my network. It was like, I was just wading through a bunch of white women and I was scared. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, because it's just, you just don't know. So I, took a risk, not a risk, but I feel like it always is a risk, right? Depending on, that's how I viewed it. But I saw that I needed to protect myself. And that was like the number one thing. I think being pregnant and being a Black woman, this sense of authority over my body came very strong that I don't think I had before. I remember my first midwife appointment. I looked at her and I said, I'm a Black woman. The three of you are white women. Are you going to protect me? Like, that's the first thing I said to this lady.
Wow.
I don't know what, it was just something came over me and that's what I felt. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, okay. Yes. And then literally, she goes,
she was flustered.
She was flustered. She goes, let me get Tanya in here. And she called and they found their only Black midwife that they had and brought in.
Oh my God.
God bless Tanya. Tanya.
We have people. I'm like,
I can't.
Okay.
Tanya was the one. She's like, girl.
They brought Tanya in here to make sure.
But you know what? That's powerful, Kelsey, though. That's so powerful that you just like took ownership and let them know, like, this is the deal. If y'all going to be working with me, this is what it's going to be. That is inspiring and powerful, because for some reason, when we see those white coats or we see someone of expertise, of authority, some of us get a little shook. And you be thinking it's know all, like, just shut up.
The lights, it's sterile, it's so unwelcoming. Like, it's hard not to.
Yeah, so for you to do that is so real. Inspiring, man.
That's so real. And I can totally vibe with that as well. That's part of the reason why I chose to have a home birth, because I felt like my spirit ignited when I found out I was pregnant. And my husband and I had started talking about, like, labor plans, or like what we wanted to do in terms of that. And I just, in my spirit, I felt so connected to a home birth, and it was 100% my instincts, because if my mind had gotten involved, I would have let my mind talk me out of it 100%, because it was a scary thing to even land on, having a home birth. Like, this is my first child. We're in a pandemic. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Like, who does that? Like, who chooses to make this decision? Like, but I just felt my instincts really connecting to it. Like, this is what you have to do. This is the only way that you, Corey, Michelle Petnot, are going to feel the safest. And that was really like, I felt maybe one of those moments where, you know, I was rooted in my ancestry of like, this is the choice you got to make, girl. And I know it's scary, but this is it for you. And it felt, you know, even though I was scared kind of going through it and sort of making the decision, when we hired our midwife and we hired our doula, I felt like, okay, I feel so safe with them that ultimately I trust, no matter what's going to happen, that they have my back and that they are going to listen to me and listen to my concerns. And that was really the main thing that I felt nervous about, you know, in the hospital system, which kind of like leads me to the next thing that I wanted to, you know, ask you guys about. If you felt like your birthing experience or your pregnancy or prenatal care was impacted by the fact that you were a Black woman. Did you feel, and I know, Kelsey, you sort of talked about this a little bit with your midwife experience, but in your care with your particular doctors, I don't know how many of you had doctors of color or had any sort of experience like that, but did you feel that it was impacted by the fact that you were a Black woman, or is it something that you felt didn't really affect you too much?
I would say the one thing I did have like a weird experience with was my doula, who in the end I actually got all my money back because it was like a pointless, it was stupid because she couldn't come into the hospital. And so after speaking with another person, another doula, she like was like, oh no, like other doulas, you know, because it was the beginning of the pandemic, no one knew what to do. Like it was all new, virtual stuff was all new. Nothing was really in place at that point. But like other doulas that she knew would like still go to the hospital and they just like wait outside, but they'd be on FaceTime the whole time. Literally like didn't really hear from mine. She like was like, oh, just call when you need. But like, you know, like how do I know what I need when I'm like in labor? And then the one time I needed her and I called, she didn't answer.
No.
I'm not kidding you. It was hideous. Like it was like at the point, Shanika knows from like the Positive Birth Company, but you're going like through the transition. It's when you think you can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Emotional. She needed that's the literal emotional support.
Yeah.
That you needed.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the one time, and then like legit, I'm not even kidding you. She probably called back 10 minutes and I'd had my baby because it was literally the point where I was about to push. I pushed and like she came out. But like, yeah, it was like the one moment I needed her and she didn't pick up the phone. I'm like, that is your job. And I just felt like so like I felt so like invisible. And then she said she would make it up after with like, you know, like coming round and like helping at the beginning, like, you know, like dropping off. Obviously she couldn't stay, but like dropping off some stuff and like blah, blah, blah. She came one time, which is like part of like what they're meant to do anyway. And then like she never came again. And like, you know, I just felt completely like I was just like fobbed off, you know, just like left.
Wow.
Oh, well, like, you know, I tried, it's a pandemic, I couldn't do it. And like, just like cast off to the side. And I just was like, can't like, you know, and it really made me think because like, there's many things, especially moving to America where I understand my privilege, like one, my accent, two, I'm mixed race. Like there's many things I understand my privilege, and growing up in a big city and being from London, I guess like sometimes I've been oblivious to things. And that was like definitely a moment where like I saw me like highlight myself for like how it is. And it was like it was like such a weird like smack in the face of like, would she treat like, because I think too many times I'm just like, oh, I'm sure everyone gets treated like that. And I was like, would she treat a white couple like that? And like, I know I look young, and I think sometimes as well, because of that, I also get treated. And like, it's so, sorry, I'm going off on like 1,000 tangents.
No, you're nailing it. We're all like shaking our head because you're nailing it. Because I also wonder if it's classism too. If they think that because you look like you don't have the coin, they can just,
I think
whatever.
So. And like, especially like pushing Campbell around, like being with my child, I'm like so aware of how people may perceive me when they just see like Kyle and me on the street, like
so real. Young, that is so
I
real.
have like a brown child, and I'm just like, I wonder what people think, like, or how they look at me, and it's so bizarre because but when you don't have a child, you just don't think of those things,
Yeah.
And like, who should I care anyway? But I just like, it really is like, oh my gosh. And it makes me like think about how I may perceive people too. It's just been like so interesting. But that was the one time where I was like, whoa, okay, girl.
That's wild.
And thinking about this question for me, it was actually the pediatrician choosing. That was interesting because I'll tell you this, my hospital experience, my doctor, my gynecologist, my OB, I've had her for so long that I already had a relationship with her. She's part of the reason why I actually changed my mind about what I wanted, how I wanted to birth at first. I really wanted a water birth. We all know in the city of New York, that's like going to a birthing center, they like don't exist anymore for some reason. Because I didn't necessarily want to be at home, but I wanted to be close enough to, a medical facility to where if anything went wrong, I could get the help that I needed. And I'm used to people being able to be in a birthing center. And that is like not, for some reason, like almost non-existent. And I didn't want to leave my doctor because I'm so obsessed with her. I believe she is a woman of color. I don't know specifically what her background is, but she's definitely a brown woman. And she's always been so respectful of me, never judgmental. She knew a lot about my, my sex history, everything. So I didn't want to leave that comfort. And it was Columbia, which is one of the best hospitals, New York Presbyterian, best hospitals in New York. So I felt very comfortable there. But when I got there, the first nurse who was attending to me, she was not so pleasant, and she was a white woman. And I don't know if it was because her shift was changing over or what it was, but I was so happy when the shift did change over, because then I did get a woman of color, a Spanish woman, and she made me feel like a superwoman. She was so helpful and patient with me, and just and so comforting. But like I was saying, to the pediatrician choosing, I really wanted to choose a pediatrician of color, and I researched, and going back to the system, Chloe, there's also only so much within the system of what does my insurance take? Is my insurance even going to take particular pediatricians? So that started a whole other journey of what my options were out there. And then just also wanting to get recommendations from friends. And I actually I recognized that I didn't have originally a lot of friends of color who were already mothers to ask. And so then I did have some people give me recommendations, but when I even was looking at the doctor facility and everything like that, it just didn't seem up to par. And so that was a whole thing. And I ended up going with a particular pediatrician, my friend Jessica recommended, and I really liked them. However, I do feel like because I am a young mother, I seem like a young mother, and I am a woman of color, and me and my husband come in with our street style, and I've looked around and I've almost asked, how many kids of color do y'all see? Because when you see in their little back wall where people have sent in, Christmas cards and stuff, it's a lot of white kids, not very many kids of color. And at first it was really messing with my head because the doctor, she cares for Grant and she knows her stuff, but she is a little dry. And I couldn't figure out if that was like something I should take personal or if it was more just her personality, And then my husband was like, you know what? We don't care. We just need her to do her job, take care of our son. And if at any moment that she gets out of pocket, we can check her and we can go somewhere else, you know?
Yes.
But I really love having him as a partner because he just really does not give a darn about what anybody thinks. Like he is always just like, who cares? Who cares? We do what we have to do. Walk in there, know what you're talking about and do what you got to do. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Who's paying attention to us? Who's doing what? Because we do. And I wonder if that's an artist thing. I wonder if it comes from our background of just always putting ourselves in that light to be judged. You know, it comes with our profession. You know, we're always having to think about like, what are they thinking? You know? And so it was really helpful to start to think of it that way. And I kept having to give myself self-talks before walking into the doctor's office each time to empower myself. I know my child. I know I'm a great mother. I know my son. I know what I'm talking about. And no, this isn't a stupid question because this is my first time being a mother, you know? And I found that actually when I walked in there with that type of empowerment thinking, the appointment went better. She was more receptive. She was more like, oh, yeah, I know of that, you know? And I was like, so I wonder if before, when I was seeming like I didn't know all, she, you know, her approach with me was a little bit more like, I'm better than you, you know, type of effect, as opposed to like when I came in feeling empowered and just, you know, being confident in my motherhood, that it went differently. So I couldn't figure out if it was like a thing of color or if it was just that part of just feeling like I'm the expert and you don't know what you're talking about type of situation. But for me, that it was a picking of the pediatrician, which I still feel like we're in test drive mode, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
It has like a lot to do with what area you're in. Because I feel like for Corey and myself, like being in Brooklyn, right? And Tribeca, where we're going, you know, are most of the doctors of color?
Yeah, I mean, the practice that we go to, I think there's more female Black pediatricians at that particular office than anything else.
Yeah, it's really great.
Which is interesting.
So it's just like, it's like a location game, an insurance game.
Like what I was saying before, unfortunately, when I was looking at the Black practices, they just didn't seem like up to par. And that was killing me because I wanted to support and I wanted my son to be cared for by a Black woman, but it just seemed like they didn't offer the same level of, like, the facility looked crazy, or, you know, I would have mothers that complained about the communication. And I was like, okay, my people. Okay, I want to be down.
I'm trying to support, but I need you to pull up.
I'm trying to support, but pull up. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's actually like how I felt about, you know, Shanika, what you said about being in the hospital and then you got a nurse of color and she was amazing. I actually had the opposite experience of like my night nurse, this like younger white woman. She was like incredible. Like was like, whatever positions you want to do, like da 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 da. Then the morning shift happened and I got a woman of color and she was like actually all of them were terrible. It wasn't just her. So she was like my nurse. Yeah.
Actually, never mind. They all were.
Actually, never mind. They were all like, I said, oh, you know, I really want to try and like move around and like, what's the best position? One of them said, the best position is an epidural position. How very.
Hell no. Hell no, how dare you?
Yeah. Kyle was like, she doesn't want an epidural.
Wow.
And just for people listening, we're saying how dare you because first of all, that's a mother's choice. That is a woman's choice. And you don't do
exactly.
that.
If she said she didn't want one, there's nothing wrong with getting an epidural.
Right. I just want to make that clear.
Yes, there's nothing wrong. But she said she didn't want one.
Wow.
Yeah, she said she did not want one. That is such a gag. It's just crazy to me that, like, you know, I mean, obviously everybody has different experiences and every hospital is different. Every doctor is different. And, you know, there's just, you can run the gamut in terms of the experiences. And it's not always about like, for us, we all just wanted to have the best care for ourselves and for our babies. And like the thing that felt really empowering in the moment of finding out that I was pregnant, and it seems like for all of you as well, is that there's just sort of this innate strength that comes with that of like, no, actually, that's not going to work for me. I know what I want. As long as I'm safe and my baby is safe, this is the choice I want to make. And that we all kind of felt comfortable, even in choosing pediatricians and all of that, no matter what they looked like, what their race was. It's ultimately about us feeling safe and our babies feeling safe. And that's the most important thing. And sort of piggybacking off of that, the next thing I wanted to talk about, which I feel like is sort of kind of in the vein of what we're talking about already, but I think I would be remiss if we didn't mention this, because we all had our babies in 2020 going into 2021, where we had the changeover between Donald Trump and our president now, Joe Biden, and that almost all of us were pregnant or had just had a baby going into the election. And so I just wanted to sort of tap on that just a little bit, about what that was like. What was it like being pregnant or being a new mom going into, I think, one of the most important elections of our lifetime, really, because it was the difference between us going into the new year with a plan about how to vaccinate people from this deadly virus or not. And, being in another year of lockdown or not. It just felt like so important. So I just want to sort of tap a little bit on that and what that felt like, because we were all pregnant during that time, or new moms. I was giving you a full movie moment. I was actually just doing the most. I went onto the corner of my building. I went outside. I was just like, just crying on the corner by myself, because Wayne had gone on a bike ride. I don't remember what he was going to do, but he had gone on a bike ride. And so I was on my own when they pronounced that I was by myself. And I just went out to the corner, and I'm just pregnant and a tube top, and just crying on the corner of Sullivan and Nostrand in Brooklyn. People are driving by honking. People are like, God bless you, sister, and that little baby. It just was such an amazing moment. And I didn't realize how much I had been holding my breath all year up until that point. I literally felt like my whole existence was just right up here. And in that moment, I just felt my whole entire body relax. And so the emotions just sort of poured out of me, because it's crazy. I mean, you think about the fact that you have this little Black child in your womb, and our country is literally being led by a racist. Our president is a racist person. And so you think about am I selfish for bringing this little child into the world, into this craziness? And so to finally have that little light at the end of the tunnel of okay, we're going to have a president who can at least bring us back to some sense of the middle. Is it the extremes that I think need to happen in order for us to, as Black people, feel fully safe? No. I don't know if you guys just heard that.
Yes, a Rudy and a Cootie and a poo.
Carver has gas.
The raw, the real, we are raw, real honey over here. The Pootie and the Tootie. Yes.
We are real raw, okay?
There's nothing better than a baby fart. There's
baby fart. He farts like a grown man, it's just, I don't know if it's my husband or him half the time.
So real. Sometimes I'm like, Gregory, was that you? And he's like, no, that's your baby.
What a trick bag. It's just so funny. He's like, all right, mom, enough. But yeah, I'm sure we all had similar reactions. It just was it was such a relief going into that.
Too, I actually just had this conversation 2 days ago with someone I know, and him and his girlfriend were in the Poconos, and he said it was there's loads of Trump people around there, and he said it was the day that it was announced, he was on a hike in the middle of nowhere, and there was another family close by, and they were looking at him, and they were can't believe it, he won, and they were so down, and he ran, and he was did Biden win? And they were I think, he was yeah, he was so happy. But I like can't imagine being like around people that are like, especially as a person of color, being around people that like are so upset about something when it's literally like, you're like, but do we matter? Are we like, yeah. I was so relieved. I guess it was like interesting, and I'm interested how it must have been to be pregnant at that time, because I feel like I would have been way more like involved in it. But Campbell was like 4 months at the time. And so like we were in the thick of like the beginning anyway. And I think like the easiest thing for me was just to like shut it all out and like focus on Campbell. Like, because it was just like, it was just horrible, wasn't it? It was just like so stressful. And just, I just can't believe it was even so close.
Yeah, I was pregnant because when did they I was still pregnant when they announced the results.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like it was like November. It was the following week, right?
Yeah.
Like that Saturday.
Yes, right. So I think that like Tiffany, I had really just, even like after like all the George Floyd, like all of that through the summer, like I think like 2 weeks into the George Floyd like movement and all that stuff, I was like, okay, there's no more news going on in this house. Yeah. There's no more CNN. Like we're shutting it down. So even like throughout like all the Trump stuff in the election, I literally was like, people like, I was like, I can't open up my heart. I can't open my brain to any of this. I don't want to obsess about it. So everyone was so excited about the election and I was too, but it didn't affect me as much because I had decided to just work on like be in and inward and work my family and focus on that and being pregnant and all that stuff. So, and even to this day, it's like, I'm obviously glad that he's, no longer in office, but I just was like, no, I got to focus on myself because I can't get wrapped up in what's going on because I won't survive. I won't survive. So
no, that is so real. I like fully, I fully am there with you. Because after I got like all emotional with the Black Lives Matter uprising and fully emotional because I lost my grandmother during that time also, it just was like so much that I too had to go, okay, I'm going to vote. And we stood our pregnant asses in that line. Woo woo. I'm going to vote. I'm going to do my due diligence. However, I have to shut this off because my emotional health is so much more important. I feel it. I really feel you on that, Kelsey, so much. And I feel like it takes a lot of guts to do it, especially as a Black person, because I think people judge us for not wanting to stay so tuned in, like just so drawn into it, because they almost feel like as a culture of people, that is also a part of our duty to be like just so involved. But when does it become a situation where, like you said, Kelsey, you have to choose yourself and you have to think about your emotional health and the emotional health of your baby and the emotional health of your family, to the point where not that you're not going to be knowledgeable, but to the point where you are really literally taking care of yourself. Like at some point, we really do have to take a breath. Just like I always think about how activists, I always ask my activist friends, like, what are you doing for the self-healing? Because while you're out there working hard for the people, you have to know how to, regenerate, regroup, get your energy back, get the focus back, get your spirit back aligned with yourself, because it is draining. All of that is so emotionally draining. So I'm glad that Kelsey said that, because that was also the space that I was in too. But when it was announced, we were going to brunch in Harlem and we heard the clapping and my husband was like, yep, I think it happened. And then, I knew that it happened, but I hadn't been watching any news or anything like that because I'm right there with Kelsey. I was like, okay, it's time for me to take care of my emotional health because this is a lot. This is really a lot.
It suddenly becomes like you have to like protect yourself. And like, it's, you know, if you're pregnant or you're with a new child and all you're hearing are like the negative things about like being a person of color, of like, you're more likely to like die from giving birth and this is going to happen to you. And people like, it's like, if you just keep like hearing all that negativity, like, it's like we can write a new story. And that's what's so exciting about our, you know, children being born now, is they are in like a new moment where, you know, like there is like, you know, we are cared about. And so, but it's like, yeah, I think you have to do what you can to just like have a positive, you know, positive affirmations and positivity surrounding you, and not just like hear like, oh, this is getting more likely to happen to you and this is more likely to happen to you. And like, you know,
Yep.
it makes sense.
100%. Tiff, I remember you telling me, I don't know if this was, excuse you, I don't know if this was around George Floyd stuff, but I think it might have been a multitude of things. It actually might have been the George Floyd trial. But I remember, Tiffany, you and I were talking, and you had been saying that you felt like, you know, your husband Mike had like had it on all the time, and you had to sort of like set the boundary of like, we've got to turn this off because it's not, you know, I want to know what's happening, but I also like need to prioritize my mental health, which I think is, we're going to talk about that in a whole nother episode. But I think that's something that as Black people and as Black women specifically, I think it's easy for us to ignore the priority of that and how important that is. And that we cannot be good moms on empty tanks, right?
Yes.
Like we have to fill our own tanks first. And part of that is focusing and prioritizing our mental health. And we literally, our very existence can be traumatic in some instances, you know, like we're combating so many different things just walking out on the street every day. So when having the opportunity, at least for me, I'm sure you guys can identify, having the opportunity to be able to isolate during pregnancy, while there were so many sucky things about that, that was one of the things that was actually really awesome, that I felt like I could prioritize myself because I didn't need to empty my tank into anything that I did not want to. And it also was not safe to really do that in the very beginning. So it felt like we kind of all had these instant padded rooms that we got to be in for a little bit to sort of manage our own mental health throughout, you know, this crazy time that we were pregnant, you know?
I mean, so real, because can you imagine if we were doing a Broadway show, going through all of that and trying to, you know, care for a child?
Nope.
That is just like, I don't even know. God bless the women that have had to do that in the past, because I was talking to one of our good friends, Bahia, who is like just mother goddess everything. And I was literally asking her, like, how did you do this while also trying to have a career? And she said she did have moments where she had to be honest with herself and say, you know what? I can't. I can't. Yep. I cannot be in the show these next 3 months. I have to actually bow out gracefully. You know, so it is a blessing that we've kind of gotten this uninterrupted time to bond and be moms and to figure this shit out. You know what I mean? Yes. Without the extra added pressure of trying to, you know, stay relevant and do the career. Not saying that we haven't been doing self-tapes and things like that, but even still, this is different from having to run down to Midtown to do, you know, all the things. But
totally.
Yeah, I agree with that, Corey. Yeah.
You know, it's not lost on me that so many Black women in our business specifically got pregnant during this break. It's like, when I think about that, it actually gives me chills, because I'm like, how hard we work in this business to usually we're fighting for one spot. You know, all of us there have been plenty of times where all of us in some instance have been in the same audition for one spot, right? Because they typically only have one spot for us. And the fact that our bodies were, you know, sort of operating in this crazy place of just like trying to go and get the next gig. And that the second that we all got a break, that we were able to conceive our children. And for some of us, like, we were trying to conceive in the midst of the craziness and we're unable to. I know for me, I was unable to conceive while we were trying when I was in the midst of doing my show, because I think I was asking too much of my body. And the second my body got a break, I was able to conceive. And so I think that's something that speaks to the beauty of rest for Black women. That it's just so important for us to have rest so that we can not only create life, but sustain life, our own lives, to be able to be the healthiest people that we can be, that we have to start prioritizing that. And I hope that's something we've learned from this time off, that it's important for us to prioritize our rest. It's important for us to prioritize our joy. It's important for us to prioritize our mental health and squaring ourselves off from people if that's what we need to do for a little bit, that it's important for us to do that for ourselves. And I just wanted to sort of end on a really cool and inspiring note to ask you guys what you are inspired by or what you're looking forward to with raising your beautiful little brown and Black boys and girls. What is something that you're just really excited about in raising them in this time?
Say there's so much. I think for me, the thing that I'm excited about the most is that hope, like I said. The fact that they are going, like we are going to get another chance as a people and as a country to freaking get it right this time. The fact that they are going to be the ones that are going to be the generation of change, the generation of the I have a dream, like it's really actually going to happen. And my spirit wants to believe that. So I'm going to hold on to that. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about them. I have a confession to make, but I'm really excited to see how cute he grows up. I'm like, oh my God, you're just going to be so handsome. I can't wait to see just like how cute you are and just like how you just become like your own little man. I think that is so exciting to like watch them, even just within these 4 months, just watching his face change and watching his little personality start to come about and watching when he gets angry, what makes him happy, like all of those things are so exciting to just watch them develop and see like, what kind of person are you going to be? Who are you going to be, little Grant? Little Granty? That I'm excited about that.
I love that. I have a similar. Oh, go ahead, Chloe.
No, you can go. You can go.
No, I feel the same way. I feel really excited about just seeing what type of person he's going to be. I can already tell that he is so strong-willed. I don't know where he got that from. But he is so strong-willed. Yeah. So I just can't wait to see the type of person that he's going to be. And I feel so proud of the tribe that myself and my husband have been able to sort of curate to be around him, and like all the different types of people that he's going to get to do life with, his godparents and all of his aunts and uncles and just so many different people that come from so many different walks of life. And I'm just so excited to see how they impact the human that he becomes, like the human that he grows into, because I think he's just going to be super well-rounded because there's so many different types of people that he gets to talk to and ask advice from. And I feel really inspired by, I know our country has a lot of work to do, but I feel really inspired by the place that we're moving, and that even just being able to talk about these things more openly in public platforms, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about regarding race, at least for me, I think about it as like Black people kitchen talk, like Thanksgiving dinner talk, that the conversations that you have with other Black people, and the fact that these conversations are happening on public platforms is really exciting to me, because it makes me feel like now in a public way, we can sort of express these things and not feel like we have to retain so much of this internally, which I think is part of the reason why Black people have so many health issues also, is because there's so much that we internalize. And so the fact that we're able to sort of publicly have these conversations now is exciting to me, and that he may not even know a world where you can't talk about these things openly, which is just, it's thrilling to me.
I think they have been born into like the hardest time and the most incredible time, all wrapped into one. I just feel like the love we have been able to give Campbell and the time we've been able to give her, because we have all the time in the world right now. It's just like, you know, we always joke, like, if we have a second, then never going to get what Campbell got, you know, like she just gets to be with us 24/7. And it's just like so incredible to know that these babies are like, I look at little Carver and Grant and I'm just like, they're going to know a world where like people talk about things. And I always say, like, you know, you think of like our parents' generation, and like, I can't speak for your parents, but like my parents, like, you know, they didn't talk to their friends about the same kind of thing. So like, there's definitely relationship things that don't necessarily happen because they didn't talk about things. And then our generation, I feel like, talks way more about things. And so, you know, we bounce like questions off each other, and it helps with relationships in general. And then like, you know, our kids' generation, it's going to be like a whole new level of just like being open and being understanding. And like, you know, and I truly like, I know this is all the hope. And like, we live in a bubble of like New York City or like now LA, and like, but I really do hope that that is something that is becoming like more within the whole of America, like especially for Campbell. She is an American. She's like first generation American, which is crazy. I never thought I'd have an American child. But it's like very exciting to know that she has been born into an America that seems like it is being more acceptable. And because of something like Black Lives Matter, where it made massive corporations that would never have to do that stuff, the people made them change their ways. Even if it's like slightly superficial, it's a step, like a huge step. So, yeah.
I agree with all of you. I don't have anything else to add. I think that's all on par with what I'm looking forward to. And Jackson's like whiling down below the screen, so he doesn't care.
Jackson, we're all going to have an episode where our little one is on one. So this one's Jackson's.
Yes,
Jackson, you only get one. Oh my gosh. Well, I have, as always, feel so full having conversations with you ladies. I just feel like we are able to just share so many different perspectives, and I always learn something when I get off of the phone with you guys, because I feel like there's always something new that someone shares that I never thought about. And so I just feel really excited that we're doing this. And I wish that something like this existed when I was trying to get pregnant and throughout this very beginnings, because I just think it would be so helpful. It would be something that I would really, really have gotten the opportunity to feel supported by. So I'm just so excited that we're doing this. Thank you guys for chatting with me. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you follow us on our social media channels on YouTube and also on Instagram. And we will see you next week.
Yes.
To stay connected to all things mother, follow us on Instagram at motherlove_. That's MUTHALOVE_. Thanks for listening.